It's Tuesday, May 9th.
May the 4th be with you.
Nope. That's copyright Disney, and we don't whore for Disney.
Exploiting our childhood nostalgia, they are.
Sad. So we feel that it's a brave new world, and so we have to give you a trigger warning.
Literally in the Aldous Huxley sense.
It's a lot of bad news this week. A lot of really negative things happening. So
We're going to point and laugh, though.
gird your loins, prepare yourself for it.
And, if drinking is your thing, you can drink your worries away because we've got these awesome new pint glasses in the store. There's lots of cool stuff in the store. Our mouse pads and mouse mats and our Linux Haiku stuff. So, yeah, thank you guys for picking up stuff from the store. I'm back from Texas. So, yeah, it's not completely terrible. We're going to point some things out. There's finally enough stories for us to put together the whole story on a thing, but we'll get to that in due course. First up, WikiLeaks, because, hey, WikiLeaks has new stuff they release every week, right? Because, the 1 week news cycle.
Just like us. So they are kind of like wearing me down on this. It's like, yay, I'm like waving a little flag. We go WikiLeaks. Yeah, I'm getting bored of it. So this week it's Archimedes. It's like a man-in-the-middle LAN attack. They compromise the LAN, and even if you secure your own computer, they can still redirect your web stuff and take advantage of you.
Yeah, so they figure if you've got a computer inside the network that's hardened, if you can co-opt another computer that's on the same network, you can use that to attack the other computer. And that actually works a little better because it doesn't leave an internet-based footprint where somebody might observe the traffic, or you might observe, like your IT department might observe this kind of thing at the firewall or something. You can actually, it's like your secretary's machine or some machine that's physically near you on the network can be used to attack you. So, yeah.
So you're as strong as the weakest link when it comes. Think about all the people that work at your business and think about how susceptible that bottom one is. That's how susceptible you are to the CIA.
Let's talk about ultrasonic tracking.
We've actually done it before. We've covered this, and we talked about it was more of like a what if in those days. I don't think there were a lot of apps, but now there are at least 234.
Yeah, I don't like how they don't name names. I guess they don't want to be sued or whatever. But I think strictly speaking, they were looking for the signature of a particular library from a particular marketing company or ad agency or something. And it doesn't really require special permissions in Android to use your microphone to play a sound, to use your microphone to listen for an ultrasonic sound or to play an ultrasonic sound. So
now, if you need a little refresher, this is a sort of an advertising thing. Of course, you can easily imagine how it'd be used for more nefarious things, but TV ads can play these sounds, billboards can play them, storefronts can easily broadcast them. So these apps can track where you are and what you're experiencing based on those ultrasonic signals, and you have no way of hearing them at all.
yeah, it's a really low footprint in terms of battery life and that sort of thing, in terms of like being able to detect it, because there's not really a lot going on in terms of like app permissions or anything like that. Some researchers did propose a patch to Google that would explicitly allow, inaudible communications. I think was what they named the specific Android permission for this. But it was theoretical before, and it seems much less theoretical now. I should also point out that I think the researchers trawled TV shows. They didn't find any of these kinds of beacons in TV shows. There used to be an app you could download that would show you ultrasonic signals in your area, but I looked for it and I couldn't find it again. So maybe there's a new app that'll show you, what the microphone in your phone is picking up in terms of like an ultrasonic beacon. But this is something to keep an eye on because, if you've ever used an app where you hold your phone up to the TV and it's like, what song is this? What is playing? Imagine that running all the time, except it can fingerprint more than songs. It can fingerprint everything around you. It's like, oh, this sounds like they're on Fifth Avenue in New York. Oh, this sounds like they're, wherever. It sounds like they're outside this billboard. It sounds like they're listening to this radio station. It can know.
Or the opposite, your phone record, like the court case comes up and it's like, oh, I was not there at all, officer. It's like, well, really? Because your phone registered that you heard this signal that only was played here. And so now we know you were there. Or your phone was broadcasting this signal and we picked it up on one of our telephone pole beacons. So we know exactly where you were.
That would make it easy to frame somebody too, if you knew it was there. Nobody would ever do that. That's just
I guess you could simulate their tone pretty easily.
Because it's just audio. There's nothing special about the signal.
And there's like, can you imagine that, like a jury and a judge trying to understand as you're like, no, they were spoofing my tone. They were spoofing my tone, Judge. I swear to God.
He's gonna get the chair. I wish I didn't laugh about that. Did you guys hear about the Google phishing attack this week? This is kind of surprising because the technique actually dates from 2006 or 2010 or something. It's really old, but it's finally getting some traction.
Yeah, they've been warned about this, actually. One guy was kind of, ringing the alarm bell, and they did nothing about it. The way they get you here is they send you a Google Doc invitation, and it looks like it comes from somebody on your list, but it actually doesn't come from somebody on your list. And when you click it, you're giving them this app full permission to your entire Gmail account.
Yeah, I never understood why Google does this some ways. Sometimes, like if you're downloading something from Google Drive from somebody else, and somebody's made a public link, like anybody with the link can share it, when you click on it, it still asks you to log in if you have a session on the computer. But if you right-click the link and do like open in incognito window, a browser that doesn't have the session, it'll let you download the file. And so this and some other default permissions like that is sort of why this trips up users the way that it does. It doesn't. Google shouldn't have been. I mean, it's nice for tracking purposes, I guess, because Google can say, "Hey, this person opened the document," but it was not necessary.
So, watch out for those Google Doc invites. I would just delete them all. Just if that affects your work, just point them to the story and be like, "Listen, I can't do it. My conscience won't let me. It's not secure."
You guys remember the case in Florida where somebody was forced, or it was ordered by a judge? It was like 20 people were ordered by a judge to give up their phone passcodes so that their phones could be searched for evidence. Well, it was used as a precedent in this sextortion case.
Sextortion's a cool word. So it's hard to have pity for these people. You got to think above this story and think about the greater good, because these are Snapchat stars. They're trying to extort one another with.
Is that a lower rung than people on YouTube?
That's got it. I hope so. So one couple had nude scenes and pictures of this other girl who was another Snapchat star, and they were trying to extort her for $18,000. And they texted her, if you're going to extort somebody, don't text them the extortion for the love of God. So she went to the cops. The cops seized their phones and arrested them. And then the argument here is, can they be forced to unlock those phones with their passcodes?
And the previously mentioned Florida case was used as precedent because it was an appeals court case. So it'll be a while before something like this makes its way all the way to the Supreme Court. But can you be forced to divulge something in your head? Is basically the situation that we're in. And so
the direct quote from the judge was, "The appeals court has ruled on this. My hands are tied." So until this gets a Supreme Court decision, assume that yes, you can be compelled to give up your passcode.
The thing is that the legal infrastructure that we have in America, and certainly to a lesser extent in Europe, because there is some better privacy protections in Europe, ironically, but all over the world, this is the slippery slope that we're always talking about. So it's like first, it was like pedophile monster, and now it's like, oh well, it's some extortion cases. Pretty soon, it's going to be routine traffic stops to make a copy of your phone, because that was already happening.
Yeah.
And then it was like, was that wrong? Should we not have done that?
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's a giant leap in severity of crime. For pedophile case, okay, who's going to defend it? But Snapchat extortion with people who are already putting their lives out there, it's like, well, this isn't as serious. Do we really need to threaten a freedom here? But the ball is already rolling.
Oh, Facebook. They're up to no good, exploiting, teenagers.
There's so if you study marketing, it is a very common idea that you tear a person's self-worth down, and then you express to them how your product will fill that hole. If you walk through a supermarket aisle, all those impossibly beautiful photoshopped women, that's the whole idea there. It's like, oh, you don't look like this, but if you read these articles, you might. So you better pick up this magazine. And so Facebook is denying that this was their plan, but this has got to be the plan. You find somebody at their lowest point, and you try to give them something that will make them feel better.
Targeting insecure teens.
I mean, that's a pretty wide range. It's hard to miss.
Isn't this like what the CIA did to recruit assassins and things?
Yeah. So, well, the FBI and the CIA pretty routinely look for. I mean, when you see all these headlines, it's about, oh, we stopped another bombing attempt. That's usually just like a really like mentally unstable person they found, and they were like, maybe you should bomb something. I don't know.
We got him to go along with it. We win. Yeah, I don't know.
So pretty disgusting that, but it shows that Facebook is real serious about the whole AI marketing thing. It's impressive in terms of technical ability, I guess, but really, really disgusting.
So is this going to be like when the advertising industry was born, with borderline psychological manipulation techniques that were new technology for the day? Does this mean that the AI and having a vast database on everybody means that you're going to be able to directly be able to attack the psychology of an individual in order to market your product? That seems going too far.
I think if you walked into a marketing agency and pitched them that exact thing, they would clap. Like there would be open, probably standing ovation. It's like, you figured that out? Finally.
Clearly that's objectionable, as are murders and rapes and whatever else that Facebook is wanting to block from Facebook. And they're hiring 3,000 people to check video to do it because apparently they figured out an algorithm can't do that.
I wonder. You got to wonder what the psychological toll and the turnover rate will be for someone whose job is to sit and watch Facebook Live video all day long. Can you imagine that?
That's very bad.
So they've had at least one rape. They've had a guy who killed his daughter and then himself. You had the Cleveland murder. So it's really starting to stack up. Obviously, if you give people a live video outlet and an immediate audience, because on YouTube, like your average person isn't going to have an audience immediately. Like you start broadcasting YouTube, like 2 people are going to be watching. But with Facebook, you have this.
We know.
Yeah. Right. With Facebook, you have this big giant list of people who, if you give them a clickbaity title, they're going to be tempted to click on it. And the desire for fame is so strong that people will literally do these horrible things to get that audience.
Isn't that what happened? Like we had, in the 60s, there were, members of the public that were like shooting, Hollywood stars to get other people's attention and just crazy stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they've just gotten better security now. That would still be happening if they weren't hyper aware of it.
If only we had some system in America for dealing with mental health issues.
No, that's not allowed because that's not human rights. You just put them in regular prison and then let them out.
Well, Taser, the people that make tasers, also make body cameras. Now they're making software to anticipate criminal activity from that video.
So when we first started to have the Black Lives Matter and their ilk, those protests and everything, it was obviously because of a lot of people getting shot of a certain demographic, and the police got a lot of heat. Well, Taser volunteered, hey, we're going to donate, we're going to put body cameras on every single cop in America, just, because that's our civic duty.
We can document everything?
Well, that seems to be the ulterior motive here, is now they've got a giant database. These body cameras aren't just recording for the local PD or whatever. All of this stuff is being uploaded, and Taser has a giant data trove of all of these videos.
Well, that doesn't seem like that's going to end badly at all. It's like, I shot this guy, and the software agrees with me that this was a high risk situation. So clearly, I'm exonerated.
Now, another interesting thing here is this giant archive. As a police department, you can access it and look for, try to cross-reference things and this, but it's a subscription model. So you got to pay a monthly fee in order to have access to it. Now, the plan here is to unleash deep learning on this thing and try and figure out certain things about crimes and when people encounter police. And there's kind of a Minority Report type pre-crime vibe going on here. Like, can we learn habits from this thing and figure out? It's like, do criminals do certain things before they attack a cop? It's like a cat when the tail wiggles. It's like, oh, he's gonna pounce. And is your camera gonna like make a noise? It's like, oh, the suspect is ready to pounce.
I just, it's going to be, oh, the little device made a beeping noise, and then I shot them. It's like, just beep, shoot. How complicated is that?
It's this is pretty textbook Orwellian. It is, and it's not just criminals get caught on a body camera. And there's a lot of people. There's talk of putting facial recognition also on this database, so that if you get arrested, they can scan your face, and then they've got all this giant database of anybody that cops have encountered, and they can immediately find you. And you're like, oh yeah, in January 2016, this happened with a cop to that same person.
I'm 99% sure that the technology doesn't exist for this software to make the distinction between somebody who is arrested and somebody who's not. So there are lots of interaction that you might do with law enforcement that have nothing to do with you being arrested. But that doesn't mean that you won't be cataloged. I mean, I'm sure it's like, oh, your face was seen at a protest, Should you? It's like, yes, you are totally allowed to peaceably assemble, but by God, we're going to monitor the crap out of you so that any little thing that you do, we can jump on and make your life a living hell. That won't have a chilling effect at all.
Yeah, but it's not just a possibility. It is happening. It has been happening, and we didn't really know about it until now. But now they're just advertising it. They're like, look at what we have. It's amazing.
I would like it if you could somehow get in the system and then get misidentified by the software. It's like, oh, your face looks like Charles Manson or whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, you get arrested or have a hard time or whatever, and then you could sue the Taser people for 7, 8, 9 figures, whatever. That wouldn't be terrible.
And have every cop in the country gunning for you. I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, that probably would be bad. Yeah.
They don't like to be called out on their bullshit.
Uber is under investigation by the Justice Department.
We did like 6 Uber stories last week, and people were like, "No more Uber. Why do you got to talk about Uber so much?" But they offend constantly. They're horrible.
This is kind of neat because remember we mentioned that Uber had used their software to avoid code enforcement people and to avoid the prosecutors and lawyers and things like that in certain areas like Portland, Oregon, where they're banned. Well, that's what the Department of Justice is investigating.
I think they admitted to this too.
Yeah.
Like, this is not really, did you do it? But they're just like, what's your punishment now? So just rehash the story. It's illegal in Portland. So they used AI to identify anybody who might be like trying to find out if they were actually doing it in Portland, because they obviously were. And that person just could never get an Uber. It would be like, oh, your car is dispatched. It would never show up. So it's pretty cool software. I mean, if you were some sort of local politician, though, wouldn't you be terrified? It's like, wow, they easily pinpointed our identities, our emails, and our phones that we made accounts on. How hard would it be for an assassin to find us here if they wanted to do that?
I don't think that was the first thought. I think the first thought was, we need to call up Taser and make sure that this can be used on ordinary citizens.
We need to subpoena the software. We put this in the right hands.
Yeah. It's this software is not cool when it's in Uber's hands, but in Taser's hands, hell yeah, sign me up. That's great. That is military class software.
Now, I think it's been 6 or 7 weeks at least running. Every single week, you get a robot story.
Yes.
So we couldn't go 1 week without a robot story.
This week's robot story is Suisse has deployed 20 robots within the bank.
Now, these aren't robots that are doing like high frequency trading or whatever. That was already happening, make no mistake. This is actually robots, and I don't think these are physical robots, but they call them robots. It's like a kiosk that helps you when you walk into the bank. So I think there's a lot of like tax questions for their customers and stuff like that. And now when you have those kinds of questions, you just walk in and ask them of a robot. And the AI is good enough that it's like, oh, you need to fill this out.
I want a home loan. No, take these pills. Well, California, they're out to tax job-killing robots?
Now, you can blame Bill Gates for this. It says in the story, so someone introduced a bill to tax the robots. But she admits openly, she did not consider taxing the robots until she heard Bill Gates talk about taxing the robots. So the idea here, as we have talked about ad nauseum when the robot stories come out, is they are going to destroy all the jobs. It's going to happen. There's no avoiding it. So the California answer is, let's just tax the robots. Let's tax this innovation. Let's destroy it at the root so that it can't take our jobs.
That would be problematic unless you also start doing import taxes, because immediately all those taxed robots, it's going to go to Mexico or China.
And the manufacturing warehouses, everything that you might still have a few jobs with, are going to follow them.
Yeah. So I don't think that. I mean, it's a nice idea in theory, but it's just not going to work out because. And then what constitutes a robot? I mean, if you write a piece of software that lets a software development team of 3 people do the work of 30 people because of automation technologies, which is kind of high right now, does that count as a robot? And if not, why not? Because it's doing a lot of the same things that a manufacturing robot would do, but with software instead of physical products.
Well, with the Credit Suisse robot, that's clearly just a little terminal somewhere.
Yeah.
Optimus Prime is not walking up and shaking your hand as you walk into the building, but it's still a robot in the the most literal sense. So
if they did, I would be at Credit Suisse tomorrow.
that would be pretty sweet, wouldn't it?
Get my home loan from Optimus Prime. That'd be great.
I have a feeling that Paramount would not allow that.
Those assholes.
But California, if you think that's stupid, just prepare yourself for this next story.
I also like, this is our old friend Sippy. What do we call this robot? This is the coffee making robot that we mentioned a while ago. There's a totally automated coffee robot.
I don't remember what that one was called.
Well, anyway, California seeks to tax rocket launches, which are already taxed, which is a lot of fun.
Now, yes, they are already taxed, but here's the real crazy part about this story. They want this to be a mileage-based rockets. Now, of course, this raises the question, how much of the sky above California do you think California owns? Because we're 100 miles into space, right? That's the lowest orbit. So when you're in orbit, California certainly can't claim that, right? So where does it end? And I don't know how they figured this out. They decided 62 miles is what they own.
62 miles. Wow. Okay. So, but why?
Now, I think, so I assume that's from the ground miles, right? So like it's not like an odometer is running to figure out, because if you launched at a slant, would you owe more?
Yeah.
You think so?
Oh yeah, definitely, probably.
What if you put your launch pad like right on the state line and then just hop right out?
I was thinking more like Boeing. It's like, let's put a rocket on a 747, fly the 747 up to about 30,000 feet, and then launch the rocket from there. It's huge tax savings. I could patent that business method.
But you might still have to pay the tax even if the rocket isn't running.
Oh wow. Because it went the miles, not under its own power.
That's the most insane thing that you can imagine. So, like you said before, they simply won't launch rockets from California. Hey, Florida's great, right? Let's just do it there.
I've heard there's less safety regulations in Mexico. We could just go down there and it's like, oh, we killed 7 people on this rocket launch.
Oh, man, the Mexican economy is going to do so well under this taxation regime.
It's going to be amazing. Getting through the wall might be a problem, but it's probably all right.
Well, you could just use a smaller rocket to hop over the wall. Well, speaking of taxation and paying fees that you don't want to pay.
Taxation without representation for rockets.
Apple has gotten tired of paying their fees to Qualcomm, and so their solution not going to do it anymore.
Now, this is actually kind of a complicated case. This is Apple really started the patent war, and Apple has an okay patent portfolio, but like the IBMs and the Microsofts and the Samsungs and the Qualcomms of the world really have the juggernaut size patent portfolios. And this story, the more I look into it, the more complicated and nuanced it gets. I think this has been brewing for a while. And so Qualcomm is saying that Apple has broken their agreements and the licensing fees stuff is not appropriate because there's cross-licensing deals. I mean, Apple is licensing their technology to Qualcomm. In some cases, Qualcomm is licensing a bunch of technology to Apple. But one of the more egregious things was Apple licensed some technology from Qualcomm, and Apple always likes to source their technology from as many different vendors as possible. And so Apple sourced some of the components from Qualcomm's competitors, and those components were not as good as the components from Qualcomm. So Apple in software limited the performance of some of the Qualcomm radio parts, for example, to match that of their competitors, which was explicitly forbidden in the agreement that Apple had with Qualcomm. And so now there's hell to pay.
Now, what they want here is a prevention of import into the United States. Now, of course, Apple's products are not made in the United States. They're made in Asia and they're imported. So this would effectively stop all iPhone sales in North America. Think about that. That's 40% of their market in America alone. So if Qualcomm wins this case, they get whatever they want. They have to have that American market. So
it's not like Apple doesn't have trillions of dollars.
But, they might have like a trillion less after this because they're really going to be over a barrel.
I think that this just ends up being a situation where, not where Qualcomm can name its own price, but I think Qualcomm will probably demand like a long-term 10-year deal or 15-year deal with Apple, and it'll be a sort of a cross-licensing deal. And then Apple can do whatever they want with Qualcomm technology, including hobble it. I just think it's interesting that Apple didn't want to create a situation where people would buy like an iPhone, Qualcomm, like just buy an iPhone, and then it's like, oh, I got the Qualcomm chip. Yeah, I won the lottery. And then you buy another iPhone that didn't have the Qualcomm chip, and it's like, oh, this one doesn't perform as good. So they anticipated that or dealt with that or encountered that in testing and then, made the phones equal in software. It's a really interesting story.
So all of you Apple fanboys, and there's always some that defend them when we attack them, think about that. Think about, instead of giving you the best possible experience, they crippled it so that they could save a little money on some parts.
Or, exploit the competition between two vendors when one vendor had a better component than the other.
Disgusting.
But it came back to bite them. Oops.
Let's hope it's a big bite.
Well, here in America, the Senate has introduced anti-net neutrality legislation. And if you think this doesn't affect Europe, you need to wait for the last stories in this sequence of stories because Europe, your time is coming.
Now, we already know that Ajit Pai, the new FCC chair, is trying to get rid of net neutrality. But this is a bill that would just, with one swipe, completely undo all of it. It's sort of a fast track for getting rid of it.
This is really disappointing. The most disappointing thing about all of this is that these arguments have already been had. I mean, starting with the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which a lot of cable companies and other companies like that were for, all of the arguments have already played out. These are not new arguments. It's not as if technology has changed really that much since 96, but we were going through the whole Title I, Title II thing in 2014, 2015, 2016. Things haven't changed since 2014. Not really. There hasn't been any significant innovation. There hasn't been any kind of breakthrough, regulatory or otherwise. What happened was, in 2014, 2015, 2016, ISPs were caught with their hand in the cookie jar. We don't need to rehash that. Comcast was doing terrible things with torrents. They were just blocking torrents outright. Blizzard uses that for updates. They're playing games with Netflix's traffic. And that's what forced Tom Wheeler to reclassify them explicitly as Title II communications providers. And also he gave them forbearance, meaning that not all of the provisions of Title II were enforced. He said explicitly these specific sections of Title II would be enforced against ISPs. Well, here we have an attempt to rewrite the laws in the Senate to try to deal with it that way. And it's a mess.
And the excuses, of course, the biggest excuse they always give is Google and Facebook. Google and Facebook are not ISPs. They track your data. They sell it. They do all these horrible things. They try to control you. We've mentioned Facebook earlier. But the problem is this doesn't go in both directions. So it's like, hey, we need to deregulate these ISPs because they can't compete. Okay, so let's deregulate. Let's let smaller ISPs compete. Let's let municipalities do their own ISPs. No, wait. We can't do that. So the rules, they're not applied equally. It's really only set to the advantage of the business leaders.
Yeah, see, deregulation generally is not a bad idea, but the problem is that deregulation after a period of regulations that allow consolidation is the worst possible scenario for deregulation. If the ecosystem had been a fair and level playing field the entire time, then we would be talking about hundreds or thousands of regional ISPs and not a handful of national ISPs. But because there's consolidation, all this kind of thing, these companies control a huge amount of infrastructure. This is really not a different situation than when, AT&T controlled the entire nationwide telephone system, and that monopoly was broken up because of abuses in the monopoly. But when the companies were broken up, they weren't broken up enough. Maybe the breaking up AT&T really did not work out super well historically, but making an ISP not a common carrier doesn't seem like a winning solution either, because the consolidation has already occurred.
Now, the other problem with our ISP companies is that there also are media companies, and that's a marriage that should never take place. And this story maybe points at why they're so adamant about getting the reins back in their hands, why they might be a little bit afraid of what's happening.
The last quarter's reports are in, and cord cutters, meaning people that have abandoned cable television, have spiked fivefold in TV's worst quarter ever.
Yeah, so companies like Comcast and Spectrum, they are providing your television and your internet. And as you're cutting away your television, they're really, really keen on getting control of that internet connection.
Yeah, and control of the internet connection means that you're not experiencing the stuff that you want to experience. Because if you look at the 96 Telecommunications Act, the thing with the 96 Telecommunications Act was basically an admission that, hey, a la carte TV is coming sooner or later. And with stalling and back channel idiocy and just lots of idiocy all around, we never really got there. But now with the internet, we're finally there. A la carte YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, you pick what you want. It doesn't really matter. It's not exactly a la carte in terms of like individual shows, but it's getting there. And you don't have to have a cable TV subscription anymore, as evidenced by everybody leaving. Well, it turns out advertising revenue is also down. So these media companies are also being hurt in the pocketbook there as well. So it's no wonder they're screaming bloody murder.
And it's interesting what they're doing here. As the audiences get smaller and smaller and they lose money on volume, they're just raising the prices. And
clearly that will work.
It's sort of getting to a tipping point now where the advertisers are saying, you know what? We're not really getting a return on this investment. We can go elsewhere.
Yeah, and they are. And that's sort of further compounding the problem. This is what an industry looks like in its death throes. And so, wait, you're thinking, deregulation. So deregulation means that the market picks the winners and losers, right? So then all of this maneuvering and all of this screaming to the FCC, and it's like, oh, this isn't an FCC thing, this is an FTC thing. Suddenly things start to look a little different. It starts to look like maybe all this maneuvering is to try to protect an incumbent business model instead of dealing with the fact that the business is changing.
And we certainly saw that in the music industry, didn't we? This is akin to, you talk about the death spiral. This is someone who's dying from a gunshot wound, but they've got like 2 bandoliers of grenades and they're just pulling the pins. And it's like, I'm not going alone.
So if our hypothesis were true, you would start to see this manifest itself as really like crazy pricing plans from ISPs, and ISPs not knowing how to price data and trying to do the zero rating thing and stuff like that. I was like, wait. Oh, here's a story from Verizon. They don't know how to price their gigabit upgrade pricing. It makes no sense whatsoever.
So gigabit for $70. Sounds great, right? Well, but there's a catch. It's only for new users.
Wait, what?
So for existing users, that's $200.
But new users have to have stuff built out to their house, and old users already have the stuff built out to their house.
I don't know what you're thinking about here. I just told you it's $70 for new. You want to get new users, right? $200 for existing users. They already got there. And so they actually got busted on this. A lot of people were like, hey, what's the deal? $200. And they're like, oh, well, it's part the computer. We have to adjust it over time. That takes time. So some people eventually got down to $130, which
is still weird.
It's almost twice 70. And so there's a lot of confusion. And there's literally people with the same service paying $200, $130, and $70. And there's no real rhyme or reason why that would be.
So if we had competitive ISPs in an area, the price would probably settle out or level out. And if there was deregulation that allowed, not a monopoly to exist in an area, those prices would probably level. I mean, that seems logical.
I think if we had competitive ISPs, Verizon would be out of business.
Verizon, Comcast, everybody. Yeah, probably. This is I mean, we finally have all of the stories in this whole little sort of thread of stuff that's happening, but it should be clear to you guys what is happening from a business standpoint. This is, the wires that carry the data have nothing to do with the data on the wires. And so all these little incentives for trying to consume a specific set of media, regardless of your own personal preferences, are that is de facto anti-competitive. It's just carrying bits. I mean, if there's bandwidth in the last mile to carry an ISP's TV shows, then there is bandwidth in the last mile to carry Netflix's TV shows or Hulu's or YouTube or something that hasn't been invented yet. I mean, that's the definition of a competitive market. And so this deregulation is not actually deregulation at all. It is designed to protect an incumbent business model, which is the very thing that they're arguing against. They're saying that this deregulate the FCC, AGI, and all these other companies are saying these regulations make it not a fair playing field. But by doing away with them, with the current state of the market and how ISPs have behaved in the past, I'm talking 2013, 2014, that led to the Title II reclassification, they've already demonstrated bad behavior. Nothing has changed that would make us think that anything is really different here. So this is the whole story in a nutshell, and it's coming to the rest of the world.
You also have to think about, so the YouTube adpocalypse has got a lot of people saying, well, we need an alternative to YouTube. We need something new. It's time for the next iteration. And so this is bad for companies like YouTube because, hey, you don't get a say in how your data gets delivered. But think about the next YouTube. How is a startup going to compete in a world where everybody else is already established in the fast lane? And even YouTube and Netflix have signed their deals with the devil to get whatever they can and, keep their business going. How do the new guys ever compete? So this is stifling innovation as well as ruining everything else that already exists.
Yeah, it is literally against the things that it claims to be for, and so should be exposed for what it really is. It's a terrible situation, and it's coming to the rest of the world. And people in Australia, I'm sorry, you were the guinea pigs. That's what sort of terrible thing can we give you without actually providing your stuff?
You were the guinea pigs that they injected the cancer into first to determine how long it would take to kill.
Honestly, it's really not complicated. Inside the boardroom at the cable companies, they're sitting down, they're looking at the numbers, and they're like, we have some people that are paying $200 a month for cable TV and internet. Cable TV is no longer relevant. It literally is it's no longer relevant. If you had a set-top box that could fetch the shows that you want to watch whenever you want to watch them, which is what a lot of set-top boxes do, even though most of them are from like 2006 when you use them, what they feel like, then cable TV is no longer relevant. A lot of cable TV is delivered over IP anyway. So in that boardroom, they're sitting there looking at that saying, $200 a month, how do we shift the $200 a month entirely over to providing data and don't provide TV anymore? There's no thought about upgrading the infrastructure. There's no thought about anything other than maintaining the status quo. And if people aren't interested in the cable TV product anymore, how do we make the internet product more like the cable TV product? But the reason that people are no longer interested in the cable TV product is because the internet product gives them the a la carte that they have been promised for 30 years, at least in terms of entertainment. So it's no more complicated than that.
So that's the U.S. portion. As promised, Europe is not out of this. You might be sitting back, oh, those stupid Americans. Oh, they're so stupid. Well, guess what?
We are stupid, but... Oh, there's a leaked document here that reveals UK plans for wider internet surveillance.
I can't remember. Scroll down. What's the name of this horrible act? It's got one of those. No, go back to that first paragraph. No, the first paragraph under the...
Can't see it for the ads.
Investigatory Powers Act.
Oh, yeah, that sounds...
Oh, the Investigatory Powers Act. Oh, it sounds so official. So in Europe, you have the Investigatory Powers Act, which gives law enforcement and the government more opportunities to peruse your browsing data and everything that you do. They've decided that's not enough. They need more. In this case, the two big points here is they need no more than 24 hours to fetch whatever data they want that belongs to you. And in some cases, they want real-time access. And because they want real-time access, they want the ability to install a backdoor on concurrently as much as 10% of the network.
Wow, that's surprising. Yeah. Although that's what we've had here in America for a long time. A lot of our ISPs, AT&T specifically, there's a Wikipedia article, I think, on room like 648A, which is where all of the major fiber taps. There's, our intelligence agencies are plugged into the fiber where all of the AT&T network goes on the internet. So our law enforcement, at least some tiers in our law enforcement apparatus, have already had this kind of access for many, many years. So this is not too surprising. I mean, the ISPs are built with kind of a centralized network anyway for cost consolidation and things like that. So if you think that dealing with something like this or building this kind of an apparatus is difficult, it's not. It's really not.
Well, the difference being they will not admit to that.
Well, yeah, well.
So here, they're not only admitting to it, but they are demanding it. It's going to be made into law that the ISP must build this. They must, they have to deal with the cost and everything. This has to exist. If you can't adhere to this, then you can't be an ISP.
Well, and clearly this is being built to track terrorists. And also the next thing that is almost as bad as a terrorist, which is somebody who streams using Kodi. What?
Now,
10 years in prison.
So currently it's 2 years. That seems pretty crazy too, right? I mean, years, any prison time for streaming, that seems insane. Well, how can that be? But they're like, you know what, too? It's not stopping it. Let's crank it up.
I just wanted to watch the latest episode of Game of Thrones and they're sending me to prison for 2 years.
Oh, man. It's pretty crazy, but that's where we're going with this. They're treating, I wonder what, I would love to see a table of drug crimes, because Europe, a lot of countries in Europe are really soft on drugs. So drug crimes and a stabbing and then streaming on Kodi, lined up together. I bet that would be an interesting table.
I think that can be the Labor Party's next slogan: soft on drugs, hard on copyright crime. So T-Mobile, this is kind of a follow-up. This is kind of a mention. This is a paid article, but we couldn't find an original source on this. T-Mobile was zero rating data in the Netherlands. Yeah, in the Netherlands. And so in December, the regulation authority in the Netherlands said, no, you can't do that. You can't give away data, one type of data, and charge for another data, as they should. T-Mobile ended up going to court, but the court ruled in T-Mobile's favor and said, no, there's not really any regulatory apparatus that lets T-Mobile, that says that T-Mobile has to provide the same, data is data, basically. So if T-Mobile wants to give you its music service for free and not count that against your data cap, but make you pay if you stream the same music from YouTube Red or Netflix or whatever, they're totally allowed to do that. That's totally within the business framework of the Netherlands. That seems like a horrible mess. I'm honestly kind of surprised that it was ruled this way, but it looks like the wedge into Europe is going to be the Dutch.
Those weaklings.
Why are you so weak on copyright? No, do not be co-opted by the American media influence. No. All right. Finally, hardware news. Now, this is a follow-up kind of from last week, too.
Xeon. Yeah, well, that was the leak. Last week was the leak. This is the official announcement.
Yeah, so I can't believe that they actually did this. I'm going to get my Xeon Gold.
I wonder if they'll all come with little stickers that you can put on your case. It's like, I've got the platinum.
Really, this is what we've come to? But it kind of makes sense because there really hasn't been, we're talking 4 generations of Xeon now, at least for the E5s. There hasn't really been a tremendous amount of improvement in the Xeons for 4 generations. If you look at the E3 Xeons, we got up to V6. There's not really been a tremendous amount of improvements there either.
It's also interesting to look at the pricing. So, the big question was, is Verizon going to threaten Intel to the point that they're going to come up with some reasonable pricing? Seems like no.
If the top end Xeon is $17,000, it seems like an opportunity for AMD to charge more.
I mean, I just come in a 6.5, right? I mean,
Naples is going to be real interesting. I hope. So, other bad news for Intel is you guys hear about the AMT exploit? So, AMT is a platform management component. It's like the platform controller thing. So, you can send network traffic to a motherboard with the Intel active management stuff. Sometimes Intel brands it vPro. If you get vPro turned on, you can send management packets to the network controller on the motherboard and do stuff with the machine remotely. You can boot it remotely, view the console if you're using the built-in graphics card or a graphics card that's AMT aware. You can mount media, so you can boot off of like a virtual USB. I mean, this is stuff that's really handy in the enterprise, and you see these kinds of things a lot for computers in the enterprise. Custom-built machines generally don't have this type of a feature, but there's a security problem with it that stretches back pretty much to the Core 2 Duo days. That would let somebody take over the entire computer if certain conditions are met, which are pretty common inside of corporations and inside the enterprise.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't aware of this management engine, and it really is completely separate from your operating system, your kernel, from everything. So you can't stop it, really. And in the opposite direction, it basically has access to everything. It can read the memory, it has the network, it can do whatever it wants. And it's in pretty much all the Intel chips. Not the AMT part, but the management engine itself.
Yeah, this is a really, honestly, if there is weaponized malware out there that takes advantage of this, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 was a solar flare that wiped out most satellites in orbit, this would probably be like a 9.1. And the potential here for a state-sponsored actor to take over a corporate network, inside the Fortune 1000 is significant. It is possible to disable AMT. Well, you can disable AMT from the network side of things, but this is a two-part exploit. So part of the exploit can also operate locally. And we're not really sure the extent to what the exploit is. One of the CVEs that was released said just sending a null string for the password for admin is what got you in, which is it's hard to imagine that is an unintentional oversight, because that's really bad. Like, that's just like CS 101, oops, I forgot to check if they sent anything in the string bad.
Yeah. And again, this is unlikely to affect you as, a regular consumer.
If you built your own computer, you're okay.
Yeah, this is usually more
Mostly
corporate structures, but it could affect you in terms of, your banking website going down.
Yeah. If you have an add-in NIC, like if you've got a PCI Express NIC, chances are that it's not a problem. 99% of the time, that's not a problem if you're using an add-in NIC. But it is something to keep an eye on. So watch for the developing story here. There's going to be firmware updates for these machines reaching all the way back to, probably Sandy Bridge, maybe even some Core 2 Quad machines, which is just really surprising. And anything that doesn't get a patch is going to be exploitable, at least corporate hardware.
And if you are, you want to go full tinfoil, you're terrified of this kind of thing, there are tutorials out there on how to pretty much destroy that management engine by writing the firmware.
Yep. Now, AMD has something similar but different called the Platform Security Processor, which is actually from ARM Holdings. AMD is considering making components of that open source so that, one, it can be turned off completely, two, that it can be validated for whatever. But AMD has some other interesting features in their platform, one of which is that AMD CPUs can also encrypt everything in memory, so that even if somebody is able to do a side channel attack and directly read memory, they wouldn't necessarily be able to decrypt memory contents, which is an interesting hardware feature. That's a story for another episode of the news. Moving right along, Samsung may replace Intel as the world's largest chip maker.
Now, this is a byproduct of the death of the desktop and the huge proliferation of mobile devices, specifically China. As China's economy is going very middle class. They were like, agrarian, manufacturing, and they're more and more going into middle class jobs, and they love mobile devices. They got to have them, and Samsung makes them.
Yeah, in ARM CPUs, RAM, Samsung makes a huge array of things. Intel's not just processors either. Now Intel's doing Crosspoint, their Optane technology and some other stuff, but that's sort of in a partnership. But yeah, Samsung, it's not too surprising, because Samsung is making a huge number of low-cost chips around ARM, Flash, DRAM, you name it.
It's also, when they say the biggest, they're measuring dollar value, not necessarily units shipped or anything like that. And the Chinese explosion is pushing prices up for all of those parts. So as long as the price continues to go up, Samsung's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And if that were to level out, maybe Intel could catch back up. But for the time being, it's pretty much a straight line going up.
And for the next story, let's all point and laugh. It's the Tom's Hardware article on best CPUs, which is only Intel CPUs.
Now, you can make a little bit of an argument. I mean, when they say best, what do they mean? By, it's not best value. So ignore that these are insanely priced.
Apparently means best Intel chip.
I guess. And this, of course, we have to. I hate to bring back that specter of red versus blue that the Verizon launch brought about which is the. Don't tell me about price. Which is the fastest? Which plays CS:GO the fastest? But it does seem odd that at no point is Verizon able to win one of these.
I do think that it's fun that the list of CPUs here, they start out with it's like this is the nonsense throwaway. I mean, this is a PGA. This is like a 486 or maybe a Pentium or something. I think a Pentium because or 486 because the pins are not staggered. But so this is just throwaway. This is the chart because nobody's going to read. But then when you start reading, it's like AMD's Ryzen, blah blah blah. So it starts immediately talking about Ryzen. So that to me is like it is immediately starting a defensive position, like as if the author of the article knows something is up.
Do you think some money changed hands there?
Ryzen is a damn good value for what it is. It honestly is, and it is a damned impressive chip. And so I think if money was no object, I'm surprised that there's not anything from X99 here. It seems to be, the i7 all the way down to like the Pentium G whatever. And it's hard to imagine, especially some of these lower price points. Ryzen 5, like the Ryzen 5 1500, that's a really, really good value for what it is.
Now, they do add their little about our recommendation there, where it's like, this is for gamers who want this specific thing, it's kind of a dirty way.
I'm just going to point out that it literally says this is for gamers who want to get the most for their money. Most what? I don't understand. Most
Intel CPUs.
Oh my God. It's just, I think, honestly, right now, I think the 6-core Ryzen 1600 is the best middle of the road value. I mean, especially compared, just my own personal opinion. If I were building a system, I would not be building a quad core system. And I think still like the 7700K, especially overclocked, is the faster system for applications like Adobe Premiere and those kind of things, because Adobe's applications are just stupid and poorly optimized. But for gaming, the 1600, especially with an overclock to like 4.0 or 4.1, which is pretty attainable, is an incredible value for what it is, and it costs less than the i7, and I think a little bit less than the i5. So it's really it's hard to I can't believe that there's no Ryzen CPU there, because there should be somewhere, I think.
Yeah. All right, AMD shill.
I don't know. I'm just happy to see that the quad cores are finally dying, because I got a Sandy Bridge quad core. Like what? That's like almost 10 years ago, and then we're still on quad cores as like mainstream. Come on, that's bullshit.
Oh well, there's a new laptop from Apple. Wait. No, that's Microsoft.
Microsoft Surface laptop is built to beat Apple's MacBooks. What kind of headline is this? That sounds clickbaity.
So this is a thin, sexy laptop. Where have we heard that before?
With cloth. It has a cloth, whatever. Like this is I don't know what this is. It's Murano wool, yak skin. I don't know, something.
It runs i5s and i7s. It runs the much maligned Windows 10s, which we'll talk about in the next story. Now, here's the thing I love about this machine. The SSD, which can be up to 2 terabytes, is bolted onto the board.
It's not upgradable?
No.
Why would they do that? And it's a laptop. It's not even like an ultra portable.
Yeah, that seems like an Apple move. Could it be planned obsolescence, maybe.
There's no reason for that. Come on.
So
Come on, Microsoft.
yeah,
Come on.
you got to wonder if you buy this machine and you want to use it for something else 10 years down the road or whatever, is it going to be realistic?
It's just terrible. I use the Surface Book, and I like the screen and the keyboard a lot. Like the screen and the keyboard are really nice. I like being able to detach the screen and use it as a tablet, but it's not worth the retail price, in my opinion, because rough edges and software bugs, and Microsoft just hasn't got the software right. This is a laptop, so the screen is not detachable. It's aimed at students, and it's designed to be lower cost. Now, it does come with Windows 10S, but through the end of the year, you can get a free upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, and you definitely should do that, because I've never seen a more blatantly, antitrust violation operating system than Windows 10S.
Well, let's move on to the next story and talk about the great features of Windows 10S. Now, Windows 10S, the biggest thing is the App Store. And when I say the App Store, I mean that's the only place you're going to be able to download anything from.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
It's a it's a version of Windows that doesn't run Windows apps? That sounds
right.
like Linux.
Doesn't run Windows apps. The only place you can get anything for this is from the App Store. Now, here's the good news. They're going to let you download Chrome and Firefox. But here's the bad news. Edge will always be the default browser. There's no changing that.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Oh, and wait, I forgot the other thing. Bing is always the search engine. There's no changing that.
So it's kind of like Cortana on Windows 10, not the S version. It's like, I want to use something other than Cortana. No.
Yes. No. Once again, we see the Appleification of Microsoft. They're going to sell you a sexy little laptop that you can never change the SSD on. And they're going to give you this nice operating system that only works with their stuff online.
Man, I saw Bill Gates on C-SPAN in the 90s for less than this. Come on.
So, yeah, people not happy about the Windows 10S. And again, you can upgrade it, but why would you ever even create that monstrosity?
Well, I mean, just, I don't know. I guess the one, like, God, I feel really dirty for making this argument. But one advantage possibly of Windows 10S is that if it's not stupid, which it is stupid, and this is not going to stop malware, but if they did it right, the applications that come from the Windows Store theoretically should prevent your Windows machine from getting malware, because you can't run anything except applications that have been vetted and published to the Windows Store. However, it will be trivial to bypass the application control on Windows 10S, and I don't think that's going to stop malware.
Well, are you saying that the advantage is it just works?
That's what Microsoft is going for. However, I think that they're just on the other side of the antitrust violation for their implementation.
Yeah, you can imagine that Google will not take kindly to this. They will be very upset about this. And I imagine all the other browsers as well. I mean, we've already seen that fight, and Microsoft lost, so hopefully they'll lose again.
Well, it's springtime, and a lot of you guys may be graduating high school. Maybe, I don't know. Our analytics don't really slant too much toward people that would be graduating high school. But maybe
well, this might be where they're onboarding, because this is about where we pick them up.
So, yeah, are you looking for colleges that have a varsity video game program? Because we may soon see the NCAA of esports.
Now, of course, this makes a lot of sense because your college days are probably your prime esporting days. Because you, as we can attest, when you get older, you lose it.
Yeah.
Maybe you could keep it sharpened if you kept gaming, but it's like, oh, I have to get a job. Sorry, I can't play Counter-Strike 5 hours a day.
Turns out I like to eat.
So it makes sense that you probably, this will be a situation, like you could put a college, any sport team up against a pro team, they're going to get dominated. But in this, it might be the other way around, because after your college years, you're going to hit that physical and mental limit. So these are the best esporting years right here.
It's hard for me to imagine. Like, I'm imagining League of Legends versus like the NCAA Final Four, and I'm honestly having trouble picturing which set of fans would be the saltiest.
Well, they already have some programs they talk about here, which aren't really, they're like loosely affiliated. They have Heroes of the Dorm, and I think Hearthstone has a collegiate league. So these things exist, but they're trying to tie them all together, like the NCAA, and of course, extract money from them.
Yeah, the some of the more successful gaming leagues will just like rent a really big house, like a brownstone or something, in San Francisco, and like the whole gaming league moves into the house and they all live together. And so it's a little bit like that, like Silicon Valley TV show on HBO or something, and everybody just lives together. And
Well, that's the Korean model.
oh, okay,
Yeah, that's huge in Korea, the gaming houses. And you have to like, that's like, you know, getting accepted to Harvard. It's like, oh, wow, I get to go to that gaming house. And it's also, you think about like, if you have a really successful college basketball team and you get into the tournament and you go all the way, then you miss huge swaths of your classes. So it's like, think about the world we live in. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't make the final. I'm going to reschedule. I got to go play League of Legends.
well, if that's what it takes, I mean, I've seen some really incredible StarCraft 2 players come out of Korea, and if that's what it takes, then I guess,
Yeah.
whatever.
Hey, we got to compete on the international. We can't be embarrassed by Korea over and over. We got to compete.
The implicit question at the end of every episode of the news is, yeah, that's all great, but have we cured cancer yet? Or, yeah, that's great. Have we cured AIDS yet? The answer may be yes.
This is, of course, CRISPR, which is not the thing that keeps your apples fresh in the refrigerator. It's a gene editing system. And we've talked about it a lot before. It does some really cool things, but this one's really impressive.
Yeah, they may actually be able to eliminate HIV. At least they're doing the experiment in animals using CRISPR.
So they had mice, which they gave HIV to, poor little mice. And the CRISPR was able to stop the replication. That's the big problem with HIV. It's like, you know, constantly reproducing and it spreads incredibly fast. So they stopped it and then they were able to eliminate it. And then they went a step further and took human cells and injected into these mice, again, infected with AIDS, and they were able to replicate the same results.
So that's actually really promising. How long until we get FDA trials?
Still have to do primates next. Primates and then clinical trials. So probably years away, but hey, you know, if you got HIV, you got to hang on. Get 5 more years.
Is this how we get Planet of the Apes?
I imagine that, I think the CRISPR thing, probably 20 years from now, there's going to be some crazy arguments about like, should we not have done that? You know, and
I think we'll probably be okay as long as we can keep Mark Wahlberg away from the research labs.
what's going to happen is the robot revolution. See, like, they're going to put robots in the labs, robot AI, and it's like, okay, this research takes too much, it's too intense, so let's just put the AI in charge. And the AI is going to be like, oh, look what I can do with CRISPR, and it's going to start making hybrid animals.
Somebody's going to apply to the robot. It's like, I want cat ears and a cat tail. And the robot's going to be like, okay, sounds good to me. Because it doesn't know. It doesn't know that this shouldn't do that. That's what's going to happen. That's AI. That's how we're going to, it's not going to be that AI is evil. It's going to be that somebody's going to ask the AI for a pill that, you know, turns them into a cat or something from anime or something. And that's going to be the end of the human race.
Or it might be, you know, the Musk thing where he was like, I don't want to end up as a house cat to the AI. So imagine if the AI treats us like we treat our pets. And it's like, you know what would make you cuter is a few genetic modifications. And, you know, like 20 years down the road, we're just some abomination that it likes to pet.
It's, look how cute you are with tiny folded ears.
You won't run away if I take away your legs and give you flippers.
Well, you've come to an end of yet another episode of the news. Be sure to check out the store because, yay, things in the store. It's good.
Get those pint glasses. We weren't sure about, like, does our audience want pint glasses? So prove that you do.
Yeah, because we spent a lot of money on the pint glasses. So hopefully you guys like those.
We're not big drinkers, so we were like, are these the pint glasses we want? We don't know. There's so many glass options. I had no idea.
Yeah. So we've got some on the way. So hopefully I'll be drinking some tea out of one of the pint glasses. So Earl Grey black tea. Yay.
I think you would offend both the people who drink out of pint glasses and the people who drink tea by doing that.
I do so many things like that inadvertently. I'm so sorry. I don't know. I'm just an idiot. It's fine. We'll see you next week.
See ya.